5 years have passed since the Russian military shot down Malaysian Airlines Flight MH17 over Russian-occupied eastern Ukraine, killing everyone on board. Russian media outlets manufactured fake narratives about the crime to blame Ukraine because they want you to believe the lie and doubt the truth. But this is StopFake, the place where we debunk Russian disinformation about Ukraine. So let's get to it. 5 years ago, on July 17, Malaysian Airlines Flight MH17, en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur, disappeared from radar. A total of 298 passengers and crew, including 80 children, were on board. The official investigation into the cause of the downing of Flight MH17 is still underway. The Joint Investigation Team has no doubt that the plane was shot down by a Russian Buk, a surface-to-air missile that was part of a long drawn-out Russian military invasion of eastern Ukraine. But that was not the story coming out of Russia back in 2014, as Russian militants and grave-robbing civilians poured through the wreckage of the plane. Back then, Life News bragged that Russian militants had shot down a Ukrainian military transport plane, an Antonov-26. Other Russian media quickly followed suit, showing the smoking wreckage and claiming that the destroyed plane was part of the Ukrainian military. But there were remains of children still strapped into their seats. Very quickly, it became clear that the downed plane was a passenger plane, and Russian media quickly changed their narrative from one of a victory over Ukrainian Nazis to blaming Ukraine for the downing, creating conspiracies that even said Ukrainian fighter planes shot down the Boeing. A Spanish dispatcher named Carlos, allegedly working at Ukraine's central airport Boryspil, announced in a tweet that a Ukrainian military plane was flying alongside MH17, implying that Ukraine's military had something to do with the demise of MH17. This lie was broadcast in RT in Spain. StopFake found that Carlos, the dispatcher, was a made-up name and account. There was no such person working at any Ukrainian airport, and the Twitter account was also fake. Radio Liberty journalists tracked down Carlos and found that he is a Spanish ex-convict detained by Romanian police for alleged fraud in August of 2013, 9 months before his appearance in RT Spanish. Carlos admitted that he received $48,000 from RT for playing Carlos the dispatcher. He also admitted that he was told what to tweet. After the Carlos debacle dried up, Russian media unleashed a new virtual avalanche of fake versions and bizarre hypotheses about MH17's demise, most of which somehow found ways to blame Ukraine for the crime. On the day MH17 crashed, and for 2 consecutive days, Russia's state-run troll farm, the Internet Research Agency, produced as many as 486,000 tweets, about 15 tweets per minute. 65,000 of those tweets blamed Ukraine for downing the plane. To put this into context, that's over 4,000 pages of written text. That amount of disinformation is the equivalent of a denial of service attack when hackers send out a deluge of data to bring down a website. But in this case, they denied access to the truth. As a result, the possibility that Russian military brought down MH17 was of course immediately dismissed out of hand and not even considered. One Russian version amounted to claims that the real target was Russian President Vladimir Putin's plane. Both MH17 and the Russian presidential plane were similar in color and flew over the same route, namely over Warsaw. StopFake plotted the routes of both planes on a map, showing the absurdity of such a hypothesis. And for the truly bizarre, there was the dead people plane hypothesis, suggestions that there had never been any live people aboard MH17, that the passengers were already dead when the plane was destroyed. Russia continued accusing Ukraine of everything. It was Ukraine's fault because it did not close air traffic over the war zone. Ukraine was obstructing the investigation. Ukraine was refusing to provide investigators with recordings of conversations between pilots and ground services. StopFake showed that such accusations were absolute nonsense. Ukraine's air traffic service provided the investigators with all the recordings and transcripts of all communications with Flight MH17. An honest investigation eventually gets to the truth, if it isn't corrupted. And if it isn't corrupted, then it has to be seen as biased. To get to that place, where the investigation suddenly finds itself under a cloud of doubt, requires a concerted effort to muddy the waters of truth. And that's what Russian media started to do. Russian media assert that the JIT, the Joint Investigation Team that has been investigating the crash, trying to identify the perpetrators, is ignoring data and evidence presented by Russia. But Russia never sent any evidence, it turned out, but that did not stop the Kremlin from accusing the JIT of ignoring this vital evidence. when the joint investigation team made up of the Netherlands, Australia, Malaysia, Belgium, and Ukraine, countries which were the most hit by the MH17 crime, started to present its findings, Moscow changed its tactics and began to undermine the credibility of those findings. Based on evidence, the finger of blame began to clearly point to Russia, and in response, the Kremlin propaganda machine began sowing doubt and mistrust about the team's conclusions. Over the years, StopFake has debunked many different versions of fakes about MH17 put out by the Russian disinformation industry. But that industry keeps growing with new fake photos, fake witnesses, and fake narratives. The truth is out there, and you can find it on our website, stopfake.org. The fact is, Russian disinformation has had an effect. Polls show that 2/3 of Russians believe that Ukraine or Western special forces shot down MH17. Even some Ukrainians have fallen for these lies. Healthy skeptics know that the truth is still the truth, even if no one believes it, and a lie is still a lie, even if everyone believes it. And last month, the joint investigation team named 4 key suspects, 3 Russian nationals and 1 Ukrainian, who was collaborating with the Russian occupation forces, who would be charged with murder over the attack on the civilian airliner. The 4 are suspected of facilitating the transport of the Buk surface-to-air missile system from Russia to Ukraine that was used to shoot down MH17. The trial will start on the 9th of March 2020 at 10 a.m. before the District Court of The Hague. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on the StopFake website. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.